Hey everyone, happy Friday. We are back once again on the Daily Jace live show. It's my pride, honor, and privilege to bring the guest to the show today. He's a fellow podcaster, the Wolf of Queenstreet, and also a speaker. Very excited to have him on the show. Happy level 2, everyone. We're going to bring him on in 3, 2, 1. Lawrence Lotze. How's it going? Sorry, mispronounced your last name.
No, it's all good, Jace. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, it's good to have you here. It's always good to have a fellow podcaster in the mix. You know what's going on. I know you talk to a lot of smart people out there, so it's cool to have your brains joining us today.
Yeah, like you said, I talk to smart people doesn't necessarily mean I'm the smart one, right? So that's how podcasting works. You get the smarter person on the other side of the table than yourself, and it means the show goes down really well.
You're too humble, mate. Before we jump into all the crunchy stuff, give us your quick 5 on your background, your history, and how you came to be here.
So to let everyone know, Lawrence Lotze, the Wolf of Queenstreet podcast series. I started a podcast about 15 months ago, wanting to help people be inspired or get inspired by having amazing people on the show that they can listen and take the tips and tricks from that. So pretty much entrepreneurs giving away all these secrets and so forth. During that time in 2019, a couple of months into my journey, I had a sort of a curveball by life. We'd been diagnosed with a brain tumor. Golf ball sized brain tumor, which I only found out in May last year, 12 months ago, actually just ago, and then had to go through surgery 60 days later, actually on my birthday, and then had to recover through that. And during that whole time period, I still try to help build my brand, my podcast, and help inspire so many other people while myself struggling through personal dilemmas, mental issues, and so forth, which I wasn't very public about. And finally, in February this year, I had to finally come out to the public world and turn around and say, I am not okay. I am not handling this okay. And I'm not, in my private life, I'm struggling through this. And it's been an interesting journey since then, being able to come out to the open world and say, I have a problem and I need help. But yeah, that's pretty much been my journey the last 12 to 15 months.
Yeah, so I guess you've had a pretty big journey. It's been a ride and a half for you, emotionally, mentally, financially, all of everything sort of got rocked by your journey. I suppose the main thing I want to talk about is resilience in the face of adversity, because a lot of people are going into uncertain times, and although they may not have that the medical hardship that you went through, they're definitely facing hardships in the months ahead, just because of the situation everyone's in. When you found out about your own personal situation, how many months ago? 18, did you say?
No, so I got diagnosed in April last year.
April last year. Okay, so just over a year. What was going through your mind? What was your instant thought process?
I mean, obviously, it was a shock to the system. I'm mid-30s, played sport all my life, been overall fit, other than COVID where everyone's put on weight. But, so they picked up something wasn't right with myself. And it took a couple of months until to April to turn around and say, hey, look, we found something. It's not something small, it's something of reasonable size. And then the biggest problem you have in those ways is because we've got so much content out there, you go to Dr. Google. So you go to Dr. Google and you go into everything in, what can it be, what possibility, while they're trying to figure it out. And you start playing your mind, it's this situation, it's that situation, and all of that. So there was that dilemma, other than as well working through going, oh damn, it's something big. A few weeks later, I've been told it's larger than a golf ball. It's pushing on my optic nerve. It was it encased my whole pituitary gland, which meant my hormones were all over the place. I'd lost, without realizing, I'd lost 30% of my actual eyesight. At this stage, my peripheral viewing was like I couldn't see anything on my peripheral at all. And because it had taken years to get to that, I didn't realize it naturally. And you had to work through each one of those pieces individually, and try to think through it, try to stay positive, and go through it. One thing I think that helped in my situation, from the actual diagnosis to the surgery, was less than 60 days. So as much as 60 days sounds like a lot, in that situation, it's not. You know, everything's moving so quickly, so drastically, that I had only 60 days to mentally work through what was going to happen, and then actually the surgery to come through on the other side, and then the challenges that came out from after the surgery. Because
were you in hospital all of that 60 days?
No, so I only went into hospital for the actual surgery, and then I had to stay in hospital for 5 days after that. And then the recovery was for weeks, a good couple of weeks to get myself back to normal. Obviously, brain surgery is not something that you can just stand up the next day or, you know, play around a few weeks later and get back into it, even though I thought I could. And today, I mean, I'm still 11 months from the surgery, and I still have ongoing issues, ongoing challenges due to it. And it's part of my daily life. And it was something that through the journey, I knew it was there, but I never really accepted it. And it was only until the stage, like I said, in February, when I came out and said, hey, things are tough. I'm not being honest with everyone. It's become more acceptable to myself, and it's become more controllable to myself. And that's where sort of I think a lot of people to talk about in today, as we are over the last 30 days or going into the next 30 days, with the challenges that people are going to have, whether it's financial, career-wise, medically, the same thing as well. Once you accept and acknowledge it and go, yes, it sucks, it's horrible, you know, get through that. I totally agree. It's not pleasant. And then start working with it, not working against it. It just makes a different situation. If you're fighting something you cannot change, especially if it's personal or if it's on you or it's to you in your career, you're going to just be pushing it so hard the wrong way, and you're going to spend so much energy in the wrong focus. And I did that for months, and let me tell you, it doesn't work. Publicly, I was perfect, I was healthy, but privately, I was a mess and I was chaos.
Yeah, Juanita's actually tuning in. She says people are always open to help. Cool to see you tuning in. I think that's quite true. Like I suppose when you show what's been going on in your world, everyone's human, everyone's got their own stuff going on. But once you open up a little bit, there's all these people that are willing to boost your confidence, help you out where you need. Did you find that was the case?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was a bit of a shock as well, because, like, you know, with my social brand, I'm quite public all the time. I'm doing episodes every week. I did an episode 3 weeks after surgery, and no one knew about it. And so everyone saw this public image, what you see now, and well spoken, can handle a situation, you know, talking and all. So when I came out, firstly, it wasn't that people. The first instance wasn't people that could help. The first instance, there was a lot of shock. There was a lot of, oh damn, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize how bad it was. Even my close personal friends, I had people call me up literally immediately and going, hey, my wife just showed me your post that you did. What's going on? Why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you know? And that sort of stuff. And we see that in our day-to-day lives now, when we see in the news or we see somewhere on social media, someone falling into depression, someone unfortunately going to the suicide route, and no one realizing that there was this underneath layer, because we're not being open more about it. And, you know, and once I did it, it was so beneficial to myself and everyone around me. And it's sort of that whole thought of, why were you afraid to acknowledge it before? Nothing changed. I didn't lose friends. I gained more friends. I didn't lose the opinion of me didn't drop between other people. It improved. And it's that sort of stuff that I try to talk to people now as well about, is don't be shy to say there's something going on. Don't be shy to say I'm struggling. I can't find my next opportunity. I can't find my next job or my next paycheck, or I'm going through a medical situation and I don't know how to handle this for myself or my family. There is, as Juanita said, there is so many people out there that are willing to help and have been through each one of those struggles themselves.
Yeah, for sure. How long did it take for you to go from the mind shift of thinking, I've got to fight this thing, and you're in a negative headspace, to actually accepting it and finding like you had to roll with it. There's only so much control you had over the situation, and go into that slightly more positive mindset.
So, when I started the podcast, which was February last year, which was just before things started getting a bit serious in this situation, I started the podcast, wanting the platform to allow people to be inspired, and still not understanding my place in the world. I'm an entrepreneur. I've had multiple companies. Some have been a success, some haven't. It's just part of the journey, and still struggling to find my place in it. Obviously, fast forward a couple of months, April diagnosis, April knowing there's something going on, May come into diagnosis, June the surgery. Still working through the challenges of what actually happened to me, going, my life's never going to be the same. To put it to a point, I have, the outcome of it is I've got to take medication every single day. If I don't take medication for a week period, my body will totally shut down. That's just sort of my life, and it's accepting that. And then a couple of weeks later, still working through, not realizing or not thinking my place, where I find my place. And I ended up in September last year, 2019, I ended up going in and crewing at a Tony Robbins event for 5 days at the UPW. Still recovering. I was less than 3 months out from surgery. I was nowhere near perfect. We were doing 16 to 18-hour days. And it was in that 5 days of having 7,000 people at the event every single day, managing a team, or I had a team around me, and being able to help the people at the event, that I realized at that exact moment, through all the challenges I have, I am here to help people and give to people no matter what, to inspire, give away freely, give away my time. And it was in that sort of moment of not being in the perfect state, struggling, trying to figure out where in my life I could see what I could mean to other people. And it was there I said, okay, from that moment, this is what my direction is going to be.
Awesome. We've got a follow-up question from Juanita. Do you think people don't open up because they fear how people will react? What's your thought?
I totally agree with that. Personally, yes. I'm a big burly South African boy. I come out and say that I'm emotional. I'm a mess. I can't control my hormones sometimes. I'm not to say I'm manic depressive, but there's moments where I am. I'm up and I'm down. So to come out publicly and say, look here, there's times I can't get out of bed in the morning. There's times where myself and my wife can't see eye to eye just because we're so far apart in the struggles I'm having. That sort of stuff that people struggle to publicly want to come out and say that. But it's only by doing that you get an understanding of, hey, my journey is not that unique. There is so many other people that have gone through that. And funny enough, one of the funniest stories, or one of the most intriguing stories that came out of this, my surgery was actually on my birthday. So it's funny, every year I have a birthday now, I can celebrate my life a little bit more. So I had a contact out of the States contact me on my birthday and said, just, happy birthday, hope you're having a great day. I was in the recovery room, or I was a few hours later, so I was in the recovery room, just keeping myself busy, just messaging people back, say, thank you so much. I'm just, depending on who they were, I would give them a little bit more information. So I'd known a little bit, so I'd give her information saying, I'm in the hospital right now, just recovering from surgery. And she's like, oh my goodness, I'm in the medical field. What's going on? And I said, no, I just got diagnosed with brain tumor. This is what it is. And I just had the surgery. And she turned around and said, no ways. I had that exact surgery 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so we, for about a week, or for about that 2 weeks, we were just talking. She was talking about the condition. She's in the medical field. How am I doing? How's this happening? And it was so interesting that one moment of sharing a little bit of information, I had someone that could directly, through experience, guide me and help me with my recovery.
So it's your birthday, you're lying on the bed in hospital, you've just finished surgery, the doctor or surgeon comes up to your bed, and how did he deliver the news after you came out? Well,
or anyone that's been through surgeries, I've been through multiple, unfortunately, in my time. Everything, he just came out. I can just remember me coming out of it and saying everything's good. I remember a few hours later when the specialist came back and saw me, he came back and said, "Hey, look here, we got everything. We did as well as we did. It was great. The tumor was larger than expected. It's not something you always want to hear, but they confirmed that they could remove it all, and he had a good confidence that we likely wouldn't have regrowth at a later stage."
Oh, that's awesome. How did your perspective on life change from before you had the surgery to after? What was the biggest shift in your mind?
So you get those two spectrums. You get the person that has a challenging moment in their lives, and their perspective changes to the most extreme of, hey, I'm gonna step away from everything. I'm gonna be a free spirit. I'm gonna go and travel the world. You see that all the time with people getting through sort of similar situations to mine. I sat there and said, look, yeah, I don't want to go down that extreme path, because I've got too much that I still want to be with it. I enjoy my day job. I love what I do. I'm not just going to give up on my house and travel the world and stuff. I can do that normally, but it was more of a sort of a realization of, I am meant to be here to help other people through that moment, and I'm going to try and do that as much as I possibly can. And I've said it before, I crewed Sydney, UPW. I then crewed in Auckland a couple of times at the end of the year. And I've said on my show multiple times, if I win the lotto tomorrow, or if I get enough money tomorrow, or in the next 5 years that I don't have to work, I will give my time up every single day for charity. I will go and crew. I will go and help people 8 to 12 hours a day for nothing, because that's sort of the realization of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Getting stuck in helping people and just delivering some form of value to the wider community.
I totally agree with that. Whether it's charity based, whether it's been inspiration in a business location, I've been at so many events as an attendee and had breakthrough moments that changed my life indefinitely. So to be on the other side and be able to help someone, or be able to work someone through those situations, it's so inspiring. Take it back to anyone that's gone to a Tony Robbins event. Just talk about that. There's a moment on day 3 where they go through, forgot the process now, and all my Tony Robbins fans are going to be shouting at me. But there's a process where you go sort of a deep dive in moment, and you've literally got to break yourself down to nothing and build yourself back up. Now, a lot of people can handle this. A lot of people can't handle this situation. So you have people having to step away. You're having people having to walk away from the situation, or actually breaking down on the spot. You're talking about yourself in the dark with 7,000 people, and we have people dropping to their knees. We have people just running out and inconsolable. And it's at those moments where you learn your strengths of being able to just, as long as it might be you just standing there next to them, not saying anything, but they feel they've got your support, or you talking through with them in their situations, or you're helping them through those challenges.
What's the long-term play for you? What do you want to, where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years time, if you had the ideal lifestyle that you're trying to build up for yourself?
So obviously continue with the podcast, being able to get that to reach further audiences, get more people on it. At the moment, if anyone's listening in the New Zealand, Australian market space, I'd love to have more New Zealand, Australian people on the show. I've got a large overseas base guests that have come on. I would love to get more New Zealanders on the show, just showing the challenges, what we as a small country go through. And then on the other side, I'd love to be able to get onto stage more often, to be able to publicly speak, to show people how to get through struggles and challenges, and how just to improve. And to put it out there, I'm not that person that's I want to come on stage and say, hey, pay me $5,000 and I'll show you to change your life. I want to come on stage and say, yeah, this is how you change your life. It's not going to cost you anything. Here's my tips and tricks, and here's my guidance. And you can take it if you want to, if you don't, or you don't have to if you don't need to.
Yeah. So I suppose that leads in nicely into what's going on in the world at the moment. People have lost their jobs, businesses are struggling. what steps or what advice can you pass on to those individuals that are struggling and they may need to change their lives, because there's more people than ever that they've found themselves in that situation?
Yeah, there's the stress, the anxiety, the depression, the unknown, and fear at the moment is exceptionally high. To anyone that's thinking, listening, or looking at this at the moment, if you're in that situation, before we get into it, if you want to, please reach out to any one of us. We can call you to chat to you, Zoom call or Skype call as well. I'll come and visit once we get onto level 1, and we can go through it. But just from a personal perspective, each person has to take their own journey. This is one of the things that I think we miss in social media, we miss in our lives today, is we see someone else's journey and we follow that journey. I am me, you are you, and our two journeys through the challenge will be different. So we've got to go through it alone. Not alone, we've got to go through it in our own way. And what that means is we've got to have an understanding of where we stand. So sort of a judgment call and going, I've lost my job, or I don't know what's happening next, or I don't know where my next paycheck is, and mentally work through the situation of where I stand at the moment, and then process on what are my options forward. Now, options are nothing's going to happen. That is not an option. That is just you straight away going and acknowledging that there's, putting a block on yourself. The options forward, and let's use the example of you've lost your job. Let's use the example, you lost your job in the travel industry, which unfortunately has been hit really big and really hard, or the restaurant and bar industry. Acknowledging and going, yes, it sucks. What it is at the moment, I'm sitting without a job. Working through that and going, okay, first question is, do I want to go back there? Is that the place where I want to really be? Because as much as it's a hard situation in our lives, this is also the moment that key people are pivoting and going to stuff that inspires them and it makes them passionate. Because a lot of us get into a job that pays the 9 to 5, and 5 years later, we realize we're in that same job because we never followed our passion, or just that we blinked and the time has gone by. So this is where we can make that internal judgment and look through it and going, what is my opportunities? I've only got a certain amount of experience. I can't really fall into the other fields I want to. To everyone out there, anything you want to learn outside of maybe a doctor and a lawyer, I would say you still be able to, you can find everything on free on YouTube to upskill yourself and educate yourself. For example, if you wanted to become a podcast host, you can go and learn that. I offer programs myself. If you wanted to go online and become a social influencer, you can watch videos and explains the whole process. If you ran a small business selling products, and say, well, I can't sell it anymore because I can't meet the people, I can't do anything like that. The process of having the business and selling the products, that is content. That is knowledge. So you can take that knowledge and share that to the world. And that itself is a business. And that's where a lot of people at the moment are thinking of not realizing is what is up here and what they've been through is actually sellable in some form or another. Whether it's putting on YouTube, whether it's starting the podcast, whether it's starting a blog, still people, write articles and so forth, and working through that till you find your grounding. And it's through that process of going, acknowledging, figuring out the next path, and starting on some steps to keep yourself mentally sharper and mentally in the right manner. You'll see that in 3 to 4 to 5 weeks' time, an opportunity will come around. The right opportunity will come around. Then if you sat back and said, look here, I've got nothing, I can't do anything, no doors are going to naturally open for you. You've got to take that first step for something to come closer to you.
Yeah, you put it very nice and succinctly, and you broke it down really well. It's quite a big mental shift when you've been an employee maybe for 10, 20 years to start thinking how to step into business or step into entrepreneurship. I agree with you. There's so many resources at our fingertips these days. There's Google, there's YouTube. You can find a lot about the market through what's happening on social media. LinkedIn is a great resource as well. but there's still a mental leap that you need to take
Yep.
to start thinking in that way and back yourself, because the future is uncertain. There's so many variables in business, whereas when you're an employee, you've got a secure paycheck coming in, and there needs to be a change of thinking. I don't know what the magic spice is, or how to teach that sort of thinking. Do you have thoughts on it?
It is going to be, there's going to be a percentage of people that understand, young millennials that's going to understand how to take that next step. That's is active on social media, active in the social world, and so to them, they can click and go, cool, I can try something in that space. There's going to be, the crowd that's the older crowd that has no knowledge of, how does Instagram work? How does Facebook? How does LinkedIn work? But where it is we are definitely in a moment where there is a mind shift. We've got to make that mind shift. So it's whether you make it or not, everyone else is, because the world is making a mind shift. So it's going to be a challenging moment for that individual that has not that understanding. So yes, they're going to have to spend a bit of the time, and now the time of while they're trying to work it out, educating themselves, learning as much. There is so many free workshops online. There's so many free Zoom sessions you can jump in where people are talking. Amazing Facebook groups out there at the moment where people can go in and learn and find out more about it. And it's through that self-education that you can see what happens next and how to go from it. I haven't got the golden ticket for a person that's been in the business for 15 years and that's all they've learned and they're out of a job now. I don't have that golden ticket, but we've just got to work through that. Individual has just got to know that a mental shift unfortunately has to happen, whether they can do it by themselves if they're strong enough, or whether they find mentors to help them. And anyone listening at the moment, just in the current space, please don't go pay for a mentor to help you through this situation. There's too many people out there that's trying to make money in the current world with what people are going through. I will freely help you in that situation, or any one of my people in my network, because a true and honest person at the moment with integrity won't charge anyone money that has lost a job to help them put the mental state in the right place.
Likewise, that's a similar reason why I actually started the podcast for free. It was a way to distribute information to the masses for free. Media equals mass messaging. Get good messages out there, and hopefully some people can actually derive good value out of it. And also another point is these transitions don't need to be immediate. You can pick up a job, whether it's part-time or full-time, and then after hours work on that side hustle in the background, or work building up a business. It doesn't have to be right now, right today. You become an entrepreneur. You learn along the way, right?
Yeah, so everything I'm saying at the moment is not just about saying become an entrepreneur, as in inverted commas, run a business, but it's about becoming the next opportunity that's in your path. And totally agree with you, Jace. It doesn't mean becoming it instantly. That's not going to happen. Most people that are successful have to do it for years and years and years before there's that level of success anyway. But it's in the sense of taking that next step down that journey, whatever that journey you define for yourself, whether it's going back to school, whether it's just educating yourself and saying, okay, I'm gonna have a reset for 90 days, find myself, find my health and my mental state, and make that stronger, and then I can come back. Now, I know there's people that's gonna be watching and going, hey, look, I don't have that opportunity. I don't have a paycheck next week. I need to find myself a job. There's in those, 10 or 20% of the people out there, that is going to be the case. Reach out, see where there's opportunities, because there's a lot of businesses that there are people that's going to need help and assistance. And sometimes doing something in the first instance to help will secondly get you someone to say, hey, look, you helped us out for a few days. I'd love to know if you want to come in and actually work for us a couple of days a week. It's thinking in a lot of those sort of guidance, because there's businesses that can't employ people now. They don't have the money. But if you give them a bit of their time, they might call you as the first person when they can hire. So it's just thinking a little bit outside of the box down that path.
Yeah, very true. Juanita mentioned some people just aren't entrepreneurs, and I think that is very valid. I don't think everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. It's not a a
It's not a pleasant journey, let's say that.
yeah. I think Elon Musk describes it as looking into the black abyss and chewing on glass. It's a bit of a journey, and you put yourself through a lot of pain in the process.
Oh, yeah, totally. Long hours, and not a lot of feedback. A lot of times, not a lot of money coming back. Losing a lot of money for most of the times until it gets to a certain point. But sort of this, like I said at the moment, is we're not just saying to become an entrepreneur. We're talking about just take on your next step in your life, how to go from a normal day job to the next one. But it's thinking we've got to use that. We've got to use with that mind shift now. We've got to use a little bit of the tool sets of the entrepreneur to take us from a normal situation to where we are to the next situation. And then, you follow that route. So it's thinking forward, thinking what's my opportunities, thinking where someone might need help, and then how and assisting them in that sense. Because if we just sit back being a non-entrepreneur that works a 9 to 5 in a certain industry, successful or not, irrespective, and sitting back and going, hey, that's going to come to me. In the current world, that's not, because there's 1,000 or 5,000 other people in the same situation. If they think in that a little bit different, they're going to be in front of that line from where you are.
For sure. Shifting the conversation sideways slightly, I know you talk a lot to a lot of business owners through your podcast and what they've been through. You talk to interesting and smart people. What's been the main messages or the key takeaways that you've heard from all those people?
I think it's just a lot of it's been reaching out to their current customers, their audience, to their business, and fundamentally from the first most is seeing that everyone's okay. I think the underlying issue underlying discussion has been, is the people that follow me, is the people that buy my product, is the people that use my product firstly okay? And giving them your customer base that respect. Because to be a business owner or to be in a business, no matter what you're doing, and not thinking your customers okay, or thinking that they're perfectly fine to the situation, is totally naive. And that's where a lot of them are going back to the drawing board and sending out emails or sending out videos and saying, hey, here's free content, here's free products, just to make sure you guys are okay. Here's just some value to you guys to give yourself a mental boost or a positivity boost through this time. And a lot of it's not to get repeat business at a later stage. It's just understanding that my customer, my audience, if they don't come through this okay, irrespective of what I give them, they're not going to be coming back to my business. If they don't, then I'm going to lose them totally. So as a sort of unwritten group, businesses are just supporting each other.
Yeah, it's so important to look after your customers. I remember I was running a dinner series a couple of years back, and when we stopped the dinner series, they were always asking, when's the next dinner? When's the next dinner? Are we doing it this month? Because they only ran every couple of months. It was sort of just a fun little project I ran on the side. It was called the Knowledge Collective. It was meant to bring together people who were interested in social enterprise and also connect the younger generation with the older generation, because I thought that was really important. And we tried to facilitate a great event, and everyone was asking months after, when are we running the next one? And so, yeah, it's always important to look after people, make sure that the market is doing what, I guess, delivering value to the market, whatever that looks like for them. A lot of people get mixed up in their minds what they think the ideal is as a business owner compared to what the market actually needs, right?
Totally. I talk quite a lot about in my podcast and my mentorship to people, and I use the feedback loop, and I use the comedian as my example. So most people at some stage have seen a stand-up comedian perform either live or on a TV show like on Netflix. Stand-up comedian stands on stage, one person in front of 100, 5,000, 50,000 people if you're Kevin Hart. And as he's standing there and telling jokes, if he's not paying attention to what the crowd are reacting at, he's not going to be able to complete a 45-minute or 60-minute set, because if he does his first 3 jokes and no one laughs, he has to do something to change it, because otherwise 10 minutes later, he's going to be taken off the stage. The same thing exists in the business world or in your life. If you're not listening to that feedback loop, because I have an impression of myself, and I think I know what other people are thinking, but unless I'm, have some psychic power that doesn't exist in the world, that is not possible. So I've got to listen to someone on the other side, or I've got to ask them, what do you think? How are you feeling? What are you doing? What is the best way you would like to handle this or go through with this? And that feedback loop comes back to me going, great, my audience is still struggling. They're still trying to find the next footing, but this is the way they're thinking forward. Because on the second thing from the guidance, talking to business owners, is once they've figured out how their customers are and supporting them, they can then start thinking on what is the next way to run my business. Because no business today is going to be the same. No business in 3 months' time is going to be the same as it was 12 months ago, just because of the situation. So by supporting them and giving them that guidance, they can then see that my customers are going, hey, I've just spent the last 6 weeks buying my groceries online. I don't have to come in the store. Well, maybe that should be where we focus, and people have really liked that. So that's where, the online sales business is booming and going, we're going to pop up more online sales options. Talking about how people are interacting. So many people did boot camps virtually over the last couple of months. Well, do I have to do all my boot camps as a personal trainer face-to-face? Why don't I offer the services and I can have 100 people doing it from their home? So they don't have to worry to go down to the park. They don't have to worry about putting on the perfect clothing because they're around other people, that whole situation. And I can then offer it at $2 a session instead of because I can have 100 people in a virtual room instead of charging someone $10 a session because they're coming down to the park. So it's working through that as the next steps and seeing how your business will evolve or your personal situation.
Yeah, digitization can provide value on both sides. I don't think everything needs to be digitized. I think people still want experiences. There's value of going to a cafe and having your favorite barista-made coffee with your friends. But that digitization piece has definitely been catalyzed by this whole situation and sped up. What excites you most about a post-COVID world?
What excites me the most, and I'm putting my head on the block, is what excites me most is large corporations to be held accountable for wastage of money in the sense that affects the public. There are large corporations in New Zealand at the moment that have massive footprints of buildings in every single city we exist in, which doesn't need to be that case. We have proven that people can work successfully. A portion of the businesses can work successfully from home or remotely. We do not have to be in an office 9 to 5 every single day for every company to be successful. So I want to see those companies by the public be held accountable and say, your workforce needs to reduce in that building, therefore reducing the footprint of carbon that comes out of that building, therefore also reducing the amount of traffic and all that negativities in the environment to reduce. One thing I love about working at home at the moment is I'm not wasting 2 to 2.5 hours a day in traffic. Yes, I miss the social interaction, but I do not miss sitting in a car for traffic. So that's where I think there's going to be a big realization in New Zealand when people, especially in Auckland, where our traffic for a small city is quite intense. People are going to start questioning, why do I have to sit 45 minutes or an hour in traffic to go to work, where I worked successfully in a different manner? So I think that is one of the biggest things I would like to see happen over the next 6 to 12 months within New Zealand. And then the next thing that I would like to, that I'm excited to see about, is the step up of the game of the new businesses going to pop out. Every time there's been a recession, every time there's been a depression, the uniqueness of the businesses that pop out on the other side has changed the game. Uber changed the game of how we took we booked cabs. The way we we book a hotel room. Oh, I've lost
Airbnb.
Airbnb, they changed it. What they say, Uber is the biggest taxis company in the world, but they don't own a taxi. Airbnb is the biggest hotel in the world, but they don't own a building. So what excites me most is what is the next 3 or 4 or 5 unique ideas that come out of this situation that we've never thought of.
Yeah, touching on the first point that you went through about big corporates and whether the employees actually need to come in day to day. And that's a really interesting one. I want to see how it plays out over the next 6 to 12 months, because obviously there's this yin and yang scenario between the people around the table who make the decisions, the managers and leaders at the top, and there's the people who work within the business. And they're both valuable because they need each other, right? And it'll be interesting to hear about the culture shifts that happen in big business and how those leaders navigate this, because people will challenge the idea. They will need to have new conversations that they wouldn't have had before. It's a really interesting talking point, I think, because it's never been challenged in such a huge capacity, and people will be brave enough to say it now.
I totally agree, and I think people have to have that say. I think we have to raise it as a collective and question it. Not just that we want to change it for each individual, but we need to change it as a culture. We don't have to have in New Zealand specifically, where we are on top of the game with most things. We've got one of the most beautiful countries in the world. We don't have the struggle with as mass pollution as in other countries. We don't need to have these massive footprints of carbon emitting buildings. I don't care what level of your carbon output it is. You don't need 3,000 employees in one building if only 1,000 people are needed there, and the 2,000 other people can work remotely. The mental health of that will go through the roof. Just so much positivity of, I've got a bit more freedom. I got a bit more ease from working. I don't have to stress to get into work all day, and all of that, and the stress of getting home. As much as a lot of parents, a lot of parents want to get back to work because they've been around their kids way too much in the last 6 weeks. A lot of parents have that struggle when they're sitting at a 9 to 5, that they can't get home for 5 minutes to do something with their kid, or they can't go to a sport event because their work is an hour away of where their kid is at school, at home. So us being at home and working, it gives that parent that's so much freedom, because I can step away for half an hour and go pick up my kid and come home and then keep on working. I see my family a little bit more, but I'm still doing the job that is required because I've got more time during the day. I'm not, most people that work an 8-hour day are actually working 10 hours because the time to get to work and the time to get back. When you're at home, you're working 8 hours. It's only 8 hours. You're not working 10 hours.
Yeah, and it's not a binary thing. It's not all or nothing. You can actually have this compromise in the middle where you go into work part-time. Maybe it's you skip rush hour and you only go in from 10 till 2, or you may only go on Monday and Wednesdays. It's not, there's creative ways to actually make it suit for all. It's those big businesses, they need to make it fair on everyone, and they need to be flexible to have those conversations to make sure it's optimized for the best output for the business, but also, like you touched on, the mental health of the people within the business. I'll go on.
No, I was saying, I totally agree with that. It's not a one or the other. It's a transition, and to see that there's businesses that unfortunately can't go that way. There's businesses that still need a 40% workforce always based there. But it's just the mental thought and change of it that gives you that opportunity and the freedom. And it's going to be the companies that are going to be most progressive in this thought that are going to come out of this over the next 2 to 3 years with the biggest workforce and the biggest business boom behind them. Because if a company turns around and says, I'm going to give you that freedom, you can come in and out of the office, let's say I only want you in the office 2 days a week and 3 days you can work from home. A lot of people are going to go, hey, I'm going to go to that place because it's going to give me the social interaction I want, but it's also going to give me the time freedom that I want. And it's just that sort of thought that needs to be put into place.
What excites you most about the SME space? 97% of businesses in New Zealand are SMEs. I think there's 500,000 of them out there. What excites you most about them?
Firstly, I would ask you to tell your listeners, if they don't understand what an SME is, to just give them some guidance on that, and we'll go into it.
So SMEs are small to medium enterprises. They're the smaller businesses rather than the corporates. Good point to bring up. So with that in mind, we'll push on. What's your thoughts?
We're gonna have a cull of a lot on the small side. There's going to be an overall cull of businesses which just have to happen. Every single day I'm reading the papers of known brands that are going into liquidation or entities of that. But it doesn't mean that brand doesn't exist in 6 or 12 months' time. It just means that their business way of working has to have changed. So I do see that in, like I said, is what excites me was what comes out of this in the business and the pop-ups and the new directions. So I think in the SME space, we're going to see a total new drive, digital drive, online drive in New Zealand. We are a first world company, a first world country that trusts our online businesses. So therefore you can run everything online. So I can buy my groceries, my alcohol, my food, my clothing. I can buy every single thing I need in my life digitally. So I think the businesses that's going to step up in that space, and then also in the education or the improvement space. So school education, high school education, in university education, go to a more pure digital platform, I think is as well where we're going to see in some of the, they're obviously not the medium, they're larger enterprises, but sort of the smallest channels that want to come in and teach people how to do certain things. How do I make a cabinet? How do I, put a fence together? Again, that doesn't have to be done by having someone at a Mega Mitre 10 showing 30 people. I can do a webinar and talk through the people with the same situation. And that's the sort of that the person's original business might have been face to face doing it, and he had to totally pivot to go to a different model.
As we wrap this chat up, do you have any last thoughts, opinions, any advice for the viewers who may be watching this about COVID or the world or even business? Just something to put out there into the public before we wrap the show up.
Yeah, totally. To anyone that's listening and's got questions or thoughts or they're struggling, first thing is, don't go at it alone. Don't be at it alone. Even if you are in a bubble that is alone or your life is alone, go out and reach out and ask for help. Go onto social media to anyone that you might closely know or to some people and just say, look here, I need some assistance. I need some help. We don't need to go through this moment with additional depression, anxiety, and stress of not having support. And that's the biggest thing. Everything else, how the business world is going to change, how your business is going to kick off and so forth, that'll happen next. We've got to fundamentally make sure that what's it, almost 5.5 or 6 million people have in New Zealand is still that number in 6 months' time. That's because the underlying biggest issue we have in New Zealand before this is we have one of the highest suicide rates, depression rates in kids, teens, and adults. I don't want to see those numbers change. I don't want to see those numbers skyrocket because people are not coming out and asking for help. People won't judge you for it, believe you me. I thought that, and there was no judgment. There was only fully supported.
For sure. Yeah, that's one of the dark statistics of New Zealand. It's a reality. We need to get on top of it because it's a huge problem. But as you said, reach out, talk. Talk to your loved ones, make sure that you have those support systems in place just so that you can get through and then hopefully thrive in the future. A fantastic message. Lawrence, thanks so much for jumping on. If people want to reach you, what's the best place to go to?
So the main place to go, you can go and find me is on lawrencelotze.com. just on my website, which is lawrencelotze.com, and there's a copy of it right on the screen now. In here, you can find out more about myself. You can subscribe to the podcast series. You can see the latest episodes. My stories at the bottom there, why I do what I do. So, if you're interested, go through there, have a listen, subscribe to it. And then behind that is obviously you can find me on any social platform under Lawrence Lotze as well, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and so forth. If you want to reach out, I am way too heavily busy on social media all the time. So you can normally get hold of me within a couple of minutes if I'm not in an existing meeting. So feel free to reach out, to ask any questions, even if you have if you want to know something about some guidance, or you want me to put you in contact with someone, I'm more than happy to do that.
Magic, Lawrence. Thanks so much for jumping on. Awesome messages, great advice, great insights. Always awesome to have a chat to you and find out more. I'll be watching your journey on socials very closely.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No worries, man. Catch you soon. Peace. Lawrence Lotze, everyone. Lawrence Lotze. He's an incredible person. Obviously very giving with his time, his energy, his efforts, and his heart is in the right place. He's had his own journey, obviously, having a brain tumour and going through surgery. It does pretty wicked things to the mindset, and obviously it's a life-changing moment. So it's great to see he came out of that on the other side. But yeah, just an incredible human. That's all from me, folks. Hope you enjoyed the week of the podcast. We had some great speakers on the show, giving their insights and putting forward their thoughts on the whole situation. I'll be here tomorrow for the call-in show, so check in tomorrow. If you want to have a chat, then I'll be here. I'm looking forward to it. Ask questions, get answers. Have a great weekend, everyone, and enjoy your newfound freedom in level 2. Peace.